Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Blue Abroad Saturdays. It's a fine Saturday morning up here in Brisbane, and hope it is wherever you're watching. Here we go again. 12 games down. Very, very likely 10 games to go with this roller coaster ride we know as the Carlton Football Club AFL season. I'm joined this morning by none other than the man himself, whose heart is beating oh so true for Scotland, Dan Williams. You are in a very good mood this morning, sir. You might want to share why.
Oh, yeah. I haven't had this little sleep, I think, until my youngest was born. But the mighty Blues, the Scotland, they got the draw. They did it. They went into enemy territory, smash and grab like Robert the Bruce. And we go back to Scotland with the points, which could be important because no one in existence has ever seen Scotland get out of a qualifying group in the major championships. But it's on Billy Gilmore. Get around him.
Oh, that is fantastic. Fantastic for Scotland, of course. I think if they beat Croatia, very likely to get lucky third, which means they do go through to the round of 16, which is great for them. But, of course, this is a Carlton show, and we come into a clash against the Greater Western Sydney Giants, a side we have really struggled against, it must be said, in their short tenure. We've played each other 10 times. They've won 7. We've won 3. Last year, of course, on the Gold Coast was probably one of the most frustrating games you would ever watch. Pommy, looking at this one, I must say I'm not feeling too confident about our chances tonight at this stage. I mean, I feel like we're good enough to beat anyone at our best, but we haven't shown our best much at all, really, this season.
So they're all fair comments, Riley. It's a tough one when you look at the matchups. We know that probably their greatest strength is their work in and around the ball. Tim Taranto's in sensational form this year. Kelly's been, in my opinion, kind of quiet, but ominously quiet. We know the threat of Whitfield. You've got Hopper there as well. And you've also got big bad Toby Green, haven't you? They're a very talented side. Incidentally, a couple of their players do have career bests against Carlton. And I think their ins as well show where they're scared of us. And that's Davis comes straight back in to alleviate the threat of Harry. It's going to be a really good game because you can see what they've done as well. They've brought Perryman in. They've got a real intercept feel into their defensive 50. So you can see GWS have earmarked transition is where Carlton are hurt. You can see they're planning for that. And then in the same token, Carlton have brought in Kennedy. We've brought in Parks, who's a more lockdown defender as well. So we're trying to alleviate their threat because we know their main avenue of attack is none other than Toby Green. He leads their inside 50 count, and it's where he oscillates. So it's going to be a very interesting battle because both sides, I think, have revealed their game plan, and it's the battle of the game plans.
It is. We were talking off air about a couple of things. First off, we mentioned Toby Green. Last time these two sides met, he got the 3 Chaz Brownlow votes. He was sensational in that game at Metricon. He's one that has traditionally haunted us so much, and you know what? He's really like their Isaac Heaney in terms of how we match up against him. It's really a struggle. I feel like Parks might get first crack tonight. It'll be interesting to see how much he filters forward midfield. But he's the sort of bloke we struggle against the mauls and the mids. We can cover the talls fine, but without a Lockie Plowman, it's going to be really vulnerable for us against him. So stopping the supply to him as much as possible without letting him even get the opportunity to hurt us is going to be so crucial. We were also talking before off air. It's probably the slowest Carlton side we've put out in season 2021 so far. We sort of thought we had the F1 wheels at the start of the year for Need for Speed. And now we sort of look, and they bring in Matt Kennedy back. They bring in Parks and Foggs back. Now the other two are slow, but they're not speed demons. I don't think it's exactly a coincidence that Matt Kennedy comes back into the side now that Luke Power has taken over the midfield coaching role for the rest of the season. I think there's going to be a real emphasis on contest tonight after, what has been really disappointing. And quite frankly, we were downright embarrassed against the West Coast Eagles in that area. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a measure of what GWS do. They're very central in their clearance work. They attack the clearance. They try and smash and bash. Mumford being out's huge for them because he's a big part of that. He creates the gaps. But I think what they're doing as well, Carlton, is clever. Patrick Cripps, actually, it's his second worst side he plays against. It's one of the few sides in the comp that he averages just around the 20. Matt de Boer does have his number, and he historically kills Cripps. So it's going to be a really interesting battle because Carlton, we know, bottom 2 in scores from stoppage 50s and centre clearances and stoppages around the ground. And we also hemorrhage goals in there. We're top 2 at hemorrhaging points in them avenues as well. So you can see that Kennedy coming back, he adds a bit of steel. He's a bit more lockdown, I would say, as well, than Setterfield. He's a bit more of a role player. So I think it's going to be an interesting battle because we know where they're going to hurt us. And we can see that maybe Power has had some influence. He was a tough player himself. Maybe he's bringing that structural change that we probably need.
It's going to be, yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what Luke Power does with that midfield. I think you're pretty spot on there. Just on the Cripps comment, I was thinking about that earlier before, and you said exactly what I thought. It was basically, from memory, his last 2 games against GWS, he's had 12 and 14 possessions. So it's a side he's traditionally struggles against. It's a side that more than anyone else, no matter where they are, Carlton struggle against GWS more than anybody. It's in the past, it's been a really hard matchup for us because they've really been that bash and crash side, but they've also got that outside speed, which we really struggle against. And they've just been able to cut us to ribbons at times with their skill level. Slightly pivoting from tonight, I think it's really pertinent, and we're going to get a few people on a little bit later, and it's something I want them to consider as well. We're going to head into the Williams word, and Pom, what I want to ask you, we got 10 weeks to go. What is some of the things, or what is one really key thing you want to see from Carlton in the last 10 weeks? Is it wins? Is it a change in sort of the way we play now? We can't change systems fundamentally, but we can change aspects of how we play. Is it bringing in the younger kids like your Ramseys, your Durdens, if they're fit, even filtering Brody Kemp in? What do you want to see?
I think from the next loss, when it is mathematically impossible to make finals, I do want to see us cement the building blocks for success. So by that, what I mean is we've got, 4 players now that are in the team that are over 30, 5, sorry. So I want us to be looking at the next level of them players and who that might or what that might look like, and really set ourselves up for the trade period and maybe the draft, so we know that we go into next year with a clear established plan, because obviously the plan was finals this year, and there's no way that you can word it. If we don't make finals after you've said that, it is a fail. But with failure comes opportunity, and I would say for the last 9, 8 games, whenever it is that we lose our next one and we're out of the equation, it's a case of really building and seeing where these people are. Mark Murphy's not going to be part of the next flag till. Eddie Betts won't be. It's time to see what have we got there and will it take us to the next level? If not, shop them out, bring in new people.
Yeah, I fully agree with those sentiments there. The key for Carlton for me, and I'd be interested to see what the audience thinks of this. It's one thing to have a failure of a season. You know, clubs will have that often. You know, I think even St Kilda, it's a failure of a season right now. Probably, you know, Collingwood is a failure of a season right now. We expected them to be poor, maybe not this poor. They probably didn't expect Nathan Buckley to depart halfway during the year. What I fear for Carlton, though, is it goes from a failure of a season to a wasted season. We cannot waste the last 10 weeks because then we've just missed, a period of time, whether it's development, getting ready for the next tilt. So it's one thing to fail. We haven't lived up to expectations. That really hurts. And I've been strong on that, but okay. We cannot let it be a wasted season, because if it turns into a wasted season, then that is so much more ghastly as a football club than, not making finals. If we're, hindering development of players that are coming through, if this results in, players leaving the club. Now, that's not commenting on anything in particular. I think Alexi said it really well on the Monday night show. He sort of believes that, there's going to be some players leave at the end of the year. We don't know who that is yet. We won't know till trade period, but I think there's a fair chance. I think that's a really fair call. We cannot allow a wasted season to set that rod in further, because all that's going to do is hinder what we want to do towards 17. And then if we waste the year and lose players, then, you start hearing the words of, retool and rebuild again, which is we do not want to hear as a fan base. I think if we do, we might burn down the joint.
It's fair call. I mean, I think when you look at players that will potentially leave, you've got Samo there, who definitely isn't a Teague footballer. So you will have that decision there that if David Teague stays on, which most people anticipate will happen, SPS there's his trade value that could acquire a player that will benefit Teague to his game plan. And then obviously you've got to listen. I always think when people say back end of the season, I don't want to drop senior players and things, you've got to remember the words of a great of this club, and probably the last great coach we had that carried our name, that we all loved before David Teague, and that was Ratton. And he said, what makes this club great and why this club is the most successful club in the land is because it's ruthless in its decision-making and its pursuit of success. And that's what we've lost. Carlton Football Club isn't a storybook that you can go and pick out in the library. It's a real bloody thing of history. And in history has no time for sentiment, no time for reminiscing. It's about learning and carrying on. And at the moment, one of the big mistakes of this season is we went out and spent 1.6 million on a replacement for Cade Simpson. We bought 2 Cade Simpson replacements. So if we start doing things like that and going, let's just keep playing Eddie Betts, and then let's just hope Josh Honey, round 1 Richmond, is the real deal. Or alternatively, we buy a small forward in and then we realise, hang about, we had a guy here who could probably have done it. We could have maybe paid 600k for something else. So we've got to look at it that way. You've got to think sentiment, your favourite players. I don't care about that, and neither should the club.
Yeah, I fully agree. Just before we bring in our first guest for the morning, there's a comment here from Rod Uckerman, which is, it's a chance in these 10 games to put all the list under pressure to see who we go forward with, including Teague. And I think that's a spot-on assessment. I think from a wider perspective, and I was going to get into this a little bit later, there's a fair few careers on the line at Carlton right now. From a playing perspective, I mean, that always happens when you get an external review. So not just from a playing perspective, but a coaching perspective, and a football department perspective. So it's a really important time for this football club, and we cannot afford, as I said, to turn this into a wasted season. We have to take something out of the year, whatever it is. Whatever it is.
Spot on. There's players like, you look at players out of contract this year. You've got O'Brien, you've got Parks, you've got Fogarty, because he was only a year, Honey, you've got Brodie Kent, Gibbons. You've got players here that are probably just on the precipice of the main team. Yeah. So what I want to see is if I was our list manager, I'd be calling these blokes in the office and saying, I'm going after this player. I'm going after this player. You've got 10 weeks to make me write your name in the checkbook, not this player.
Agreed. Without further ado, we will be bringing in our first guest for the morning. That is Joe, our correspondent from overseas. Good morning, good sir. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm very tired. Very, very tired. It's a lovely 6 a.m. here. I had to get up and watch England and Scotland. And then I went back to bed. Now my girlfriend's pushing me, going, I think it's time that you got to get up. I looked at the clock. Oh God, 6 o'clock. So, but anyway, I'm here. I'm outside at 6 a.m. It's 29 degrees. Just a
29 degrees. That's quite.
That's about average.
It's interesting. Your part of the world. There's a golf YouTuber who I watch. I think his name's Golf Sidekick. And he always plays over there. He's like, it's a freezing 27 degrees, and I'm jealous. I mean, I live in Brisbane, and the weather's beautiful, most of the year, but still, it's
Do you know this is not football related, but just about 3 years ago, we had a very Arctic breeze here, and it got to it was 21 degrees, and half of my staff rang up and said, "Oh, we can't come to work today. It's too cold."
It's too cold.
Yeah, it was 21. They said, "Oh, we die." We go. Everyone says, "Kunjo." They go, "Kunjo, if I go work, I die. I not have clothes." 21. I work home. I go, "Yeah, righto, whatever." Anyway.
What are your thoughts going into tonight, mate?
Yeah, look, I was listening to you guys before, and even I was waiting in the waiting room. You're right. GWS are a bogey team. We don't play well. We don't match up well. I mean, I was just writing a few things here. De Boer always has the better of Cripps. He even did when he was at at Freo. So he keeps him quiet. Then up forward, you got Himmelberg, Finlayson, like the Twin Towers, always seem to kill us. And then, if they don't get something, then you got Toby Green hanging around. So I'm just wondering, who are we going to play on Toby Green? Is it Doherty? Is it Sard? Is it Williams? I mean, do we rotate off him and try and... Because Toby Green, they tend to swing onto the ball when things are bad. And, he's a bit of a switch hitter.
They do. I think with Toby Green, and Pom can go into this a little bit more, but watching him when I've watched, he's not exactly the traditional quick forward that we struggle against. He's in the Isaac Heaney sort of mould, a little bit smaller, but he's very good overhead. He's nifty. He's agile enough to give us trouble, and he's a footballer's footballer, and that's what we struggle. He's a smart footballer. He knows where to go, when to go there. Tommy, what do you think?
And he can take a big mark.
Yeah, exactly. He can take a huge mark.
I wouldn't be 100% shocked to see Doc get him when he's in the midfield. And I'd probably say, looking at that back line, you would assume that Carlton probably play maybe a Parks on him. I'd imagine, though, looking at their forward line, Parks might take their third tall because it is slightly taller than most. But I would be inclined to put Zach Williams on him for two reasons. One, he's trained with him predominantly. He was part of the same midfield group in his last year, so we have seen a lot of him. But two, gives him the option to go into the midfield like he wants to do in a more of a defined role to stop someone play. So we saw Zach Williams do that against Taylor Adams, against Collingwood a few years ago, and he had great success at doing it. I wouldn't be surprised if I was the coach, I would give that a try for a couple of quarters and say, you know what, here's your chance. Make him chase you.
Yeah, I guess. And I was just listening to you guys talking about the last 10 weeks of the season and the season to date. I got to disagree with you. I think it has been a wasted season. It really, really has. I mean, forget about finals, all right? Just have a look at the development of players. I mean, we're expecting things every year. You hear, people are training the house down, and I heard, Paddy Dowd's the fittest he's ever been. He's cherry ripe. He comes in and out of the team. And then, who has really developed this year? I guess Owies has been a good surprise for us. I didn't really know much about him. I just wrote that Parks, but he's in and out of the team. And one of the biggest disappointments is Tom Williamson, right? Do you know what position? Do you know where Tom Williamson is playing this weekend?
Mate, I don't know what's happening with Tom Williamson. Okay. I think that is out of the season for me. Yeah, go.
Sorry, he's on the interchange bench for the VFL. Now, he was in our team at the beginning of the year, wasn't he?
He was. Tom Williamson, for me, more than anyone else, is probably the greatest mystery at Carlton this year. Because his upward trajectory in 2020 and I got to watch a fair bit of him live last year because obviously the hubs and whatnot, and he was very impressive. And we always thought with Williamson, once he gets over his injuries, because everyone forgets how, basically for 3 years, his back was buggered, right?
Yeah.
He came back and then it's like, what the hell has happened to Williamson? I agree at this point the season's wasted. However, we have the potential as the club to not make it a fully wasted season in these last 10 weeks. It's the trajectory we take.
Exactly. And Pommy's right. These blokes have got to be sat down and said, you're on the precipice of being cut. You got to play him. Now show me. Now today you got Kennedy. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays a really bad game, and then they'll drop him next week, which is the Carlton way. They go, we're going to play the youngsters. They bring them in. I wouldn't be surprised if Murphy comes back next week. Now don't get me wrong. It's not that I'm a Murphy hater, but sometimes you need to understand when you've got to go. And look, he's good when he's got the ball. But the whole team is bad when we ain't got the ball. And he's one of the main culprits. And he just loafs around in the middle, hands on his hips, just waiting for someone else to do it. I mean, we've got to be ruthless. We just cannot afford to keep gifting people games and contracts. I mean, this term rebuild. Well, rebuild what? We've been doing it for 20 years. Jesus, we must be building the Taj Mahal.
It's a fair point. Now, Pommy and Joe, we're going to deviate a little bit from what GWS can do. What can Carlton do from both of you? And we'll start with Joe. What do you think we can do to cause a bit of grief tonight for GWS?
We've got to move the ball quickly, right? Yeah. We look good when we move the ball. I mean, I think Pommy's got a bit of problems.
That's right, sorted it.
Have a look when we played the Bulldogs. For the first, 2 and a bit quarters, we looked amazing. You'd have thought that we were on top and the Bulldogs were down the bottom. That's our secret. Our secret is we've got to be able to play really quick transitional football, because we all know that we're a shit defending team. We do not defend the corridor, and we do not run hard when we don't have the ball. So the whole idea tonight is we've got to try and keep the ball. But I'm a bit worried about the midfield. If you've got Cripps, Kennedy, and Curnow, it's not really a lot of pace. So tonight is really. Kennedy and Paddy Dow, you got to stand up and show us. Zach Williams, show us why we paid all that money for you. Harry, kick some goals, not run around and just, what did he kick last time? 3 goals, 5 or something. I mean, he tends to rush his shots too much. He doesn't take his time, and then, he kicks the belly of the ball, and instead of hooking, it goes one way. I mean, in all fairness, Wiedering and Jones have been really good this year, right? And maybe even to a little bit, I know he's a bit of a whipping boy, but I don't dislike Lockie Plowman. I just think he gets caught out. I think he gets caught out because the ball comes back at him too quickly. He's actually got pretty good skills, Plowman, if you watch him. But I don't know, the rest of them just. But we've got to play quick football. I've just seen a comment up there. Kennedy butchers the ball. Exactly. He's not quick. And I've had this argument with a friend of mine in Australia. I said, if you're not quick, you got to have skill, a.k.a. Diesel Williams. He wasn't quick, but he had silky skills. Toby Green, not quick, but he's got good skills. Kennedy, not quick, butchers the ball. It's what kills him.
Pommy?
Well, I mean, the recipe to beat this side, it's kind of what we're struggling at. So it is a great test to see us do it. And can we do it? So if you look at it's your ability to spread from the contest very quickly. You saw North Melbourne, they were successful at that. They had a lot of uncontested possessions. They really got the ball out wide quickly and then looked to hit them back hard in the centre. And that is something that Carlton do try and do. It's probably something that we don't do enough under pressure. And that is something that they do very, very poorly. GWS aren't known as their high pressure side in the midfield. It's more in the forward line that they present that pressure with their talented small. So that's what Carlton are going to want to be doing. They want to be really utilising this handball, a bit of run in there, being really first to the ball, and really laying down the law in that midfield, because that's what that midfield is good at. They're good at that. They play very high up the ground.
They've got some Rolls-Royce players. I mean, don't they call them the Ferrari? I mean, Josh Kelly, Tim Taranto, they're really good users and run all day. And we got to do the same. I'd be interested to see if Ed Curnow runs with either Kelly or Taranto. It'd be very interesting to see.
Oh, look, based off 2 weeks ago, he's going to run around with Bobby Hill.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
No, but because he was a halfback for the first time in his career, whilst Taranto goes and gets 40 possessions. So let's hope that doesn't happen again. Before I get a tip off you, Joe, one other thing, and I've seen a comment in here from Christopher, and I was just having a look. The weather tonight is supposed to be absolutely Scheisenhausen at Homebush. Interesting in Sydney as well. They really get creative with their names: Homebush, Sydney Harbour Bridge, etc., etc. So 90% rain, 12 degrees. It's going to be like a really Melburnian sort of a game. So that's maybe why they sort of brought Kennedy in. If it turns into a squad, do we think we've got the capability to match the muscle for muscle around the contest?
Yes, but only because Shane Mumford's out. He normally kills us, and I mean he's a big bully, Shane Mumford, and I know Pitnet's a big boy, but I don't think he knows how to use his body properly yet. I mean, he's only like 24, 25. Just one thing, I was listening to Matt Rendell during the week, and he was going through our list, right? And he said he critically analysed the Carlton list, and he said, you know something? They're 2 years away from being competitive. And I was really interested as to why he thought we were 2 years away. And he said, forget the older guys, the Murphys, the 30-year-olds. He said, they do not have a glut of good players between the age of 26 and 28. So, I mean, he's a proven list manager. But based on tonight, if it rains, I think we might sneak a chance. But realistically, if you're in a tipping competition and you had to put your life in it, we won't win. We'll get within 4 goals and everyone will be applauding Teed, saying, "Oh, that's an honourable loss." All those supporters that have been accepting mediocrity and not ruthlessness. But if it does rain and piss down, look, it changes the whole dynamics of the game, as Pommy said before.
It does. It does. Great to have you on, Joe. Thank you for getting up so early to join us. Enjoy the 21 degrees. And
I will.
Are you jumping on the game watch tonight?
I probably will. I'll be at home watching it, so just send me the link. But hopefully we'll all be happy tonight instead of Jesus Christ, D. Make some.
I'll tell you what. I've got a cup next to me which is empty at the moment. But if we win, I'm just going to start pouring some blue Kool-Aid in there. That's what us Carlton do.
Have a good day, guys.
Thanks for being on.
Take care.
Cheers, buddy.
See you.
Wow.
Very good guy is Joe. He's
we love Joe.
We do love Joe. Next one we're going to bring in all the way from the United States of America. Very dulcet tones, and he's got one hell of headphones on. We have got Adam.
How's it going,
Good
guys?
morning, good sir. I'm still cannot believe you chose Carlton out of all the clubs to follow. I'm so glad you have. What are your thoughts heading into tonight? Or I think for you it'll be early morning.
Yes, early morning. We have to get off on the right foot. We have to get off on the front foot. I have a good friend who is sports GWS. They don't start very well. So if we can get the ball, get inside 50s, we have to take advantage of those.
Agreed. I think one thing that I've sort of seen with GWS, and there was a comment on it was a comment on Twitter last week, and it's been a pertinent case for them over since the grand final in 2019. We have the problem if someone puts a bit of resistance against us, we start to fall over. We all know that. GWS are very similar. They can get themselves back into the game, but you only have to look at the way they played against North Melbourne last week when North put a bit of physical pressure on them. And they just went to pieces. Pom, do you think that's an area where they're vulnerable, or are we reading a little too much into that?
No, definitely. I mean, they're a side at the moment that's not playing with great confidence at the moment. And when you're not playing brilliantly into your potential, as you see with us, pressure does wonderful things to the human mind. So it's definitely exactly as Adam's saying. If we can get a bit of scoreboard pressure on, they're going to start asking themselves the question of, A, can they do it, taking a bit more risks? And that's a chance to dissect us. I think if it rains, though, and it's likely to, I think that's going to be a really good measure of where we are, because wet weather footy is a basic principle, isn't it? It's gain territory and be first to that ball when it lands. And we'll see who wants it more, because both of these sides need a win, really need a win. It's going to be interesting if it's wet, because we're going to see who wants it more.
I think the contest, both sort of sides have seen it. Adam, looking at our ends with Kennedy, Parks and Fogs, they're sort of more your contested, and particularly in the case of Fogs, tackling sort of pressure players, which is what we need, I think, after the West Coast game. Are you happy to see those inclusions into the side tonight?
I think so, especially if it's going to be wet. We need somebody who's going to provide us a bit of grit in those contests. So, yeah, I'm happy to see them.
That's good. And I guess as well, to pivot a little bit before we go back to the game, and I've sort of been asking this morning, and I put it to the general audience as well. What do you want to see in the last 10 weeks? We're on the verge. It's a failed season to this point. It's well beyond that. We all know that. But it's really on the verge of being a fully wasted season, which is not what we want. What's some of the things you want to see as a fan, and you're relatively new to the game? What's some of the things you want to see from our club in the last 10 weeks?
I think I just want to see, some fight, something, just more chemistry. Like, we know how to play footy, There were times last week where it's like, do we know what we're doing? And that's just what I want to see going forward.
I think it's the desperation's what's sort of been missing a bit. Pom, I'll put this next one to you. One thing that I'm really been interested in from a Carlton perspective is the insistence from David Teague that the system's fine. We've seen that in his press conferences in recent weeks. Do we expect to see pretty much the same tonight based off of that? Do you think there will be tweaks? Or do you think there will be more different fundamentals changes like Hawthorn had when they went into their Sydney game? They really brought a presence of physicality. And if we do that, do you think that's almost an admission that the system's, not working?
I think the main part I have is the game style. I think it's very kick heavy, and I think that today's game is going less to the kick and more to the handball, or shorter kickers, or short kicks particularly, where Teague likes. That's one of the major stats. Meters gained via foot is massive compared to Bolton. And I don't think you'll see that change. I think that's a philosophy of the coach. You might see some minor tweaks structurally, how we set up around the ball, defensive structure. But, I mean, you're talking, 2 weeks? I can't see a huge change. I would like to see, though, like you say, to replicate the Hawks and say, you know what, it's wet. It's not really conducive for good football. Go out there, be tough, set a standard, set a benchmark physically. You're bigger than them. And set a standard, and we'll address it next week when it's a nice sunny day. But I personally don't think this, my opinions on it. I think Teague's game style is horrendous with the list he's got. And the way I see it, I think we're 6 to 8 players away to play Teague's game style. 8 players, probably, a conservative guess.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair call. I think a couple for me, just before I go back to you, Adam, and it's just looking through the statistics, which I sort of mentioned last week, and it sort of feeds into what I really want to see change a bit, and I think has the potential to. So we're ranked 4th on average in clearances per game. We all know that. We're bottom 4 in that as our scoring source, though. So basically, our clearance numbers are useless. Really, we're not getting return for effort. So I'm interested to see what the changes, the little tweaks that Luke Power might make now that he's coach of that midfield group and stoppage group. I'm interested to see what those changes are. And one that I've been banging on for such a long time, and it still continues to be a bugbear for me, and it's twofold. How high we go both ways. So how high we press when the ball's in our forward 50, as a side. I know it's not a whole team defence, it's man on man, but we play so high and we get caught out so often. And then the other way as well, how high we continue to pay Harry Mackay, and how high we continue to play as a forward line. I mean, you go and watch games in person and you're seeing Harry, he's basically in the centre circle half the time. And I know a lot of that's modern footy, but he's the sort of target I think we need to be playing a bit deeper. And if it's not Harry, someone else, because what happens is if we get that representation down the line and take that mark, there's absolutely no one to go to. So we end up having to stop anyway or running ourselves into trouble. What do you think of that, Adam?
I don't know the game well enough to really have a comment on that, to be honest with you. If that's the style of the game, then so be it. Personally, like I said, I don't know the game well enough to comment.
Pommy?
Well, I think all the top teams play a key forward almost in the goal square. You see, that's what the Doggies and Geelong have great success. You saw that last night. Their full forward is pretty much living in the goal square all the time. I mean, it does two things, really. If you watch how GWS defend, they play 3 or 4 intercept defenders, which allows them to really force you to make that kick and always be at the risk of one of them peeling off and taking the easy intercept mark and hit you on the counter, which is what stings Carlton. So I think when you have someone that deep, it forces them to be structurally one man down all the time because you can't afford Harry. And you're spot on there. How many times does Harry take a wing kick and he turns around and he's got Gibbons at full forward because he's the quickest player in the midfield to get there? It's balmy, but again, that is the core principles of this system and structure and accountability that we keep going on about. It's accountability, and that's what's wrong with our defence. The zonal system requires 3 things. 1, football IQ. 2, concentration that could make your mum cry. And 3, it's knowing the system, knowing the matchups. And you see with our team, we lack all 3 of them at times. Like some of our players would take a football IQ test and the results would come back negative.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, and I think that system going forward as centre, it does require that second forward. And I know, Tom, you've said it a few times, it suits a Charlie Curnow type now. We're not even going to speculate in the Charlie this morning.
He's coming back. Don't worry, everyone. He's coming back. But that's sort of how it works to me. Adam, I remember you saying a few weeks ago, I think you said one of your favourite players was Zach Fisher, yeah?
Say that again?
One of your favourite players was Zach Fisher. You said that a couple of weeks ago.
I don't know if I said that, but I don't mind Fish. I like him. But
okay. Oh, it might have been someone else. Apologies. How have you...
It was the other American.
Yeah, sorry.
Dick.
How have you assessed Fisher since he's come back in the side? Obviously only very recent. How did you assess his game against West Coast?
To be honest with you, I was more focused on the game than I was on a specific player. But, if the whole team doesn't do well, then I don't think you have a good game either. Like I said, I was more focused on the game than I was on a specific player. So, yeah.
Okay. So I guess on the game, if we're going back, what are some of the fundamental things you'd like to see different, whether it's a playing perspective, a player perspective, in terms of, positionally. Obviously, you haven't watched the game for too long, but compared from that West Coast game to now, to tonight, what's one thing is the first thing you're like, okay, we need to change that from you watching?
I'd like to see the defense have a little bit more awareness when they're, when the ball is inside the defensive 50. It seemed like Williams was losing his man a lot of the times. We were getting caught out, and I'd like to see that improve against GWS, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that one's that's really important. Prediction for tonight? Do you think we're a genuine chance, or do you see us winning, or do you see, unfortunately, extending this losing streak from 2 to 3?
I can't see us winning this, to be completely honest with you. I think we can give it a good go, but I can't see us being within more than 3 or 4 goals, honestly. Another honorable loss.
That's a buzzword. That is one hell of a buzzword.
It's like a dagger to the heart every time someone says that. It takes a year off my life.
It kills you. Great to have you on. Thank you for jumping on. You're a massive friend of the show. And I guess we love to have people wherever they're watching. Enjoy the game. What's the weather like in your part of the world at the moment? I assume it's quite warm, being North American summer.
Oh yeah, it was 45 degrees Celsius today up here, so
nice.
Pretty hot.
Nice. That is a warm, because you're in Arizona, yeah?
Yeah.
So as a whole, before we let you go, that whole state must be buzzing about the Suns.
Oh yeah. Suns and 4, baby. Suns and 4.
Suns and 4. Oh, that is one of the best videos I've seen in a long time. I actually with the injuries that the Clippers has with Kawhi, I think they're a real chance to make the finals now. So good luck to the Suns. Hopefully, speak to you next week, and hopefully we're looking for 2 wins in a row next week, and we're not talking about breaking a 3-game losing streak. Have a good one, my friend.
Just hoping. See you guys later.
Cheers, buddy. I love Adam.
He's a good quality individual, isn't he? It's always good to speak to different people about the world. I accidentally asked him about Zach Fisher when it was.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. I mean, I know what it's like being a foreigner in Australia. You just get confused with everyone.
Yeah, it's all right. Now, it's time for everyone's favorite part of the show. It's not about me. With all disrespect, it's not about you, Tom, as well. We've actually got a couple of guests coming to the stream, but he's the greatest MC this side of Craig Willis. He is someone who has been a friend to the Carlton family for a long time, and he's someone that I've have had a lot of time for in recent times. It's going to be the great man Vince, and we're also going to bring in Jad to the stream as well to wrap us up. So just bringing you gentlemen in.
Can they see you?
Good morning, everyone.
We'll hear you guys.
Morning, boys.
Hey,
you can't hear us yet.
That's Jed there.
That is Jad.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, buddy.
Beautiful. How is everyone?
Hey,
Bring it out.
We've got some hoodlum with Vince.
Guess who I've got here with me?
Some homeless guy.
Look who I've got here with me.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Loco.
There's the famous bald head in Lygon Street, Carlton.
Probably right. Gents, it is we're back on this hard road again. It was sort of nice to have a little bit of relief with the week off, but now we're heading into the last 10 weeks, and it starts with a really big game for us as a club against GWS tonight because of, since then we've had the review announcement, we've had John Barker depart, there's sorts of speculation about a whole myriad of things that are going on. Jad, we'll start with you. What are you looking for this evening? What are your thoughts heading into tonight's game?
Yeah, I'm not too sure, boys. Like, it's a weird one. I kind of just want to see a reaction from the team as to what's been going on.
Yeah.
I want to see if they really feel if they're really going to crack in and try and defend their coach. To be honest, like a win would be great, but there's more to it than that. I think I want to see something. I want to see a reaction to what's been happening to what's been going on. Like when the reviews announced, you get a lot of media attacking the club a bit harder and things like that. I want to see how much they care. To be honest.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think everyone's looking for a bit of a reaction to what's been happening in the last couple of weeks and the review. And I was saying this a little bit before. There's whether people want to admit it, there are careers on the line, unfortunately, for everybody, players, coaching staff, the whole footy department. So it's not just having pride in your club; it's having a bit of real pride in your performance. I think that's a really, really important point. Vince and Rocco, whilst I don't know what Vince is eating or drinking.
I'm not eating anything. I'm having a latte.
It's a coffee. I thought it was a coffee.
Bygone Street.
I thought it was a coffee. Gents, what about you? What are your thoughts going into tonight? And I guess more broadly, what do you want to see in these last 10 weeks? We're assuming it's 10 weeks because this side hasn't shown anything to suggest we're going to do a Richmond of 2014.
Yeah. Look, I think if we all accept that realistically we can't make finals, I think it's time to test exactly what this entire list can do. And that means giving younger players who are knocking on the door an opportunity. I'm not saying to gift games to anybody by any means, but those that are playing well enough in the VFL to warrant an opportunity, I think we need to play them. We need to see what the Josh Honeys can do, the Sam Ramseys. We've even brought in a couple of guys in the mid-season draft. If they start off well in the VFL, bring them in and see what they can do. The young ruckman, 206 centimetres, I think, isn't he, Rocco?
Yeah, he's a volleyball. What is he, volleyball player?
Yeah, I think so, something like that.
He's a volleyballer.
If he doesn't do any good for us, maybe we can get him to sign up for the Australian volleyball team.
Yeah, that's it.
Anyway, look, I think it's time to experiment a bit. The clash in ideas there is that someone like David Teague's probably coaching for his coaching career, and that's probably going to mean that at times he's going to go the safe way rather than the experimental way. But
I got a question.
Yeah.
For everyone, what do you expect? What do you think can possibly happen in the second half of the year? What's changed in these last 2 weeks that you expect anything's going to be different?
Pommy? Can you hear us, Pom?
Yeah, I was taking the question in because I was on a high and now you're bringing me back down to earth.
Seriously, think about it. In the last 2 weeks, what have they done? They brought in a couple of players, okay, and now what? Teague hasn't changed his game plan. What's he going to do all of a sudden? Just miraculously win the next 8 out of 11? I can't see anything changing. I hate to bring
Rocco's
everyone
turned into
down.
Pauline Hanson. He's asked me a question and won't let me answer it. Jesus. Is this the Australian Parliament? Jesus. It's a fair call by Rocco. I would say this. Now, I don't expect this to happen, but this is what I hope happens. I hope that there's a review on the line, and I hope someone pulls David Teague to one side and say, when you hoodwinked the fans into getting this gig, you were the most progressive coach we'd had for a long time.
Yeah.
You instilled a sense of pride, a sense of urgency, a sense of belief in the core group of players. You were willing to make changes when the game was lost and we won. You were willing to make this team fire. And then we gave you the job and you went safe. You went back to what we know at Carlton. We've lost a game, but it's okay. Mitch McGovern's bought a new pair of underpants. So I would tell him that you have 10 weeks to get the job, to 10 weeks to prove who you are as a human being and as a club. And if you can't go back to that way, piss off. There is a lot of people that will do the job because this is the greatest club in the world. So I hope the next 10 weeks, someone lights a rocket up Teague's arse and says, go back to the man that got the job, not the fraud that is managing my football club today.
So I agree. So I'm thinking the only thing that can possibly happen now is that they turn around to Teague and said, let's get back to what we did a year and a half ago and let's see what happens in the next 10 weeks. That's all that could possibly happen. The list hasn't changed. Like we're bringing in a couple of young kids, yeah, all right, but that's all that can possibly happen to this side, I believe.
Yeah, but I've got a question for you guys with that. When Teague got the job, the reason why he got the job is because he went safe. He put Murphy and Curnow back in the middle and neglected time into young kids. So I don't think he can go back to how he was. The only way he's going to keep this job is if he grabs his balls, right, and says, okay, instead of fighting for my fucking self here, I've got to put the club first, and I'm going to go with the youth. Because we can't go back to Murphy and Curnow in the middle. It just can't happen.
Agreed. I think
the problem you've got though is you've got to look at it this way as well. That I don't blame Teague fully for the predicament we're in. It must be a horrible position to be in. The knives are out. It's a Julius Caesar moment. But what I do blame is people like Kane Liddell, Mark Lagoudachet, who, based on last year where there was no statistical evidence we were a final side because the red time situation was still here, Carlton, based on the pressure numbers in the last 5 minutes of every quarter, if you extended it, would have actually finished 16th last year, which would have been the worst season since 2017. So there we are. That I blame they put the finals thing because the COVID year wasn't a surprise when you look at the top 8 bar St Kilda. But the writing was on the wall for St Kilda and us that they had the same issue as us. Last 5 minutes, they won games. But you had an extra 5 minutes. Could they have kept that momentum? For me, that is what we need to do. Can Teague go back to that way? I don't know. But if I was David Teague, I would go back to that way because I'd rather get sacked from this great job doing what I wanted to do and not trying to be someone I'm not.
Yep.
Well, that's what I reckon, mate. That's what I reckon. Like if he can go back to the old way in terms of just letting loose, trying things, telling the boys, don't worry so much about a role, play on instinct, play to your strengths. Because it seems like we focus on what we can't do at the moment.
Well, if you remember how he got picked as the coach, he had that famous press conference. I've told the boys 2 things. You're either a skillful player or you're a workhorse. And everyone knows their role and plays their role to the best of their abilities. And they've all got the set role and they know what they're doing, right? Now you've got Stocker playing in the back pocket, which isn't his role, and he hasn't got a Scooby-Doo what to do. So he's even gone away from the mantra that we all got behind, because that was music to our ears.
Exactly.
You're not a skillful player. You're a workhorse. Go out there and win me the game. And now it's the most safe selection. Like, people are saying this is the best team they've seen for a while. I disagree. It's the slowest team I've ever seen in my life. Like, my nan actually rang me up the other day, and she's been dead 10 years, and said that she fancied beating Kennedy in the bleep test. Like, it's mental.
It's not even a team at the moment, boys. It's a scattering of some really nice young talent, and then it's some established talent, and then it's just a bunch of. I don't really think it's a team at the moment. They don't play like a team.
Oh, look, I said this last week. Individuals are keeping us in games, really,
exactly. And that's why it's scrappy. That's why it's so scrappy.
Individually, it's just individual brilliance. There was a point that was said a couple of minutes ago, and I think it was from Pom, and it was a really good segue into something I've sort of wanted to ask. We have had issues for a long time under David Teague, first it was starting games, then it was periods in games, and now it's particularly red time, to the point where at the end of quarters, we look stuffed, right? We physically look like we cannot run out games. Now, this is a 2-part question. That brings into question Andrew Russell. Is he getting are we training to the best of our ability, our fitness regimen, or are the players just naturally not fit enough? Because there's certain things you hear that when he got to the club, they weren't AFL fit. and he's had to try and make them AFL fit. And that's what's happened. We've got, certain players breaking down like they have over the time, like your McGoverns and that sort of thing. So do you think it is what we're trying to train in terms of fitness isn't working? Or do we just think these players that we have on the list they're just not naturally AFL fit? We'll start with you, Vincent Rocco.
About Russell, what do you reckon?
Look, I think we've paid a lot of money for a bloke like Russell, and to see evidence that our team's not running out games and conceding red time goals week after week is an indictment on him, a very sad one. And players are still getting soft tissue injuries everywhere. I don't see what positive difference it's made, honestly, if you reflect back on since he first started with the club. Whether there's been any real positive change to the fitness area of our club.
Why aren't questions being asked about this bloke?
I think they are.
Why questions being asked? Apparently, he's been paid more than the coach. Is this correct?
So the rumours are.
If that's the rumour, and we are still performing the way we are, come on, man. I don't know, man. There should be questions being asked about this.
Well, hopefully the full department review. This external review, which is going to provide all the answers to everything, will uncover why we're not running out games and the team is seemingly unfit to play 4 quarters.
Jad?
Yeah, look. This is just my theory, and as Vince said, it will all be found out in the review. But I'm of the opinion that. Like the benefits and the results of someone in Andrew Russell's position, they are more of a long-term result. Okay, so I don't think you can pin it all on him, because if he got to the club and the boys are not AFL standard, fit as they put it, that takes a long time to build up, and that might be why there's little soft tissue injuries here and there. The loads are increasing and they can't handle it. But no, I don't know Andrew Russell. I don't have to defend him.
They're still not fit. They're worse than they were 3 years ago.
Yes, but that leads into my next point. Where I think it's more structure and how they play. Because if you go to the ground and watch them, they have to work so hard to run back into position on turnover. That's why by the end of every quarter they look spent, because they're so busy to try to run back into position to defend. No team runs as much as these guys have to run on turnover. So I think it's a mixture of both.
Very good point. Yeah, it's a very good point, because we play, and I was saying this before, we play so high, but the defensive game style is a zone man hybrid in a lot of ways. They just have to bust ass going the other way, because we turn it over so much. You're going to look stuck. So it's I think there's so many things into it. It's why I think there'll need to be a fund. If David Teague stays, and for what it's worth, I think he probably will at this stage. I don't think he's safe, but I think, they might give him, another chance. There's going to have to be a fundamental change in the way we defend, because it leaves our defenders out to dry. Pommy, what's your thoughts on the Andrew Russell debate?
I mean, let's be honest. I do think we're definitely 100% without a doubt. I think we're fitter. Are we that amount of money fitter? Probably not. There's a lot of invariables with fitness. You see it in all sports. Once you turn 18 to 23, there is a natural development of the way your body works anyway to get fitter. But I would say I want everyone to have a bit of homework from your Uncle Pom. This weekend, I want you to watch players like Cummins, Kelly, and Toby Green for them. And then I want you to watch Doherty, Williams, and Fogarty for us. Now, you watch in transition how little they work, how hard we work. You watch how easy they will work for their goals when the ball hits the deck versus how hard we work. That all has an influence. Also, you watch how hard we defend. We don't defend with structure. We defend pure with balls. If you watch my team last night, Scotland, look at how good our structure was. How good we held on to a better, superior side in England. But it was all structure. That flat back five was flat all game. The few times it made a mistake, but by the end, their forwards were tired. we still had that extra 10 minutes in us. And that is it. It's partly structure. And I also think a huge thing for me is it's scoreboard pressure. We have to work. We start taking chances. The kicks aren't perfect, so we've got to run more. The amount of energy we expel in getting back into just the basic positions. I want everyone to do that today. Watch the wide players and compare how hard they won. But secondly, I want you to watch any balling you see. Any balling you see. And this is an amazing thing about Carlton. There'll be a bloke like Zach Fisher who's suddenly like, oh, fuck, the ball's gone the other way. And he's got to run 20 metres to fix it. Now, you watch how many times. It's basic things, bro. And honestly, we work harder than a 7-year-old in the coal mines back where I come from, mate. Honestly,
there's something you touched on there, Pom, and I just before we move on to prediction and Vince's verdict. Going back, let's go back 2 years to when he took over, right? And this is what I found so interesting, because we didn't really change defensive structure. We changed ball movement when Teague first took over as interim. We didn't change defensive structure. We've gone so far, I think, now the other way with that structure. That's why, again, and Jad's touched on it, and you've touched on it, we just don't have the ability to run our games. Let's remember 2 years ago when David Teague took over. What was our MO? We'd run teams down. That's what we did. Yeah. We ran teams down. We outran them. We outhunted them. We started absolutely shithouse, but Carlton would come home like a freight train. They don't have that. They don't have that ability anymore to do that. And I think the defensive structure is so pertinent as to why. And the reason why it worked a couple of years ago, because it was a fundamentally different defensive structure under Brendan Bolton. Whatever you think of him as a coach, it was fundamentally different, and we were much more defensively sound as a football team 2 years ago when he was there. And we sort of incorporated that and what Teague wanted with ball movement, and we found this relatively happy medium. Now it's just all over the shop.
Yeah, well, I think if you look, also to answer your question and to answer, is Russell any good? And why do we run out of legs? I think when you look, we concede more points from turnovers in midfield than any team in the comp. Second most in the forward line. I don't think it's the defence. I think part of our reason for running out of legs is the forward line and the midfield line are chasing shadows. They're not hitting targets. So you watch Hawthorn, the game they won the other week, that was just pure intent. They were just tackled. They just stopped you moving. They made you work hard to beat them. You waltzed through it. So for me, I think Bolton's structure was more traditional zones in the system of it was more of a netball style you own this quadrant. Ours seems to be very highly intercept based, which causes chaos when you've got Jones and Wheater in, who both now look like they're intercept defenders. You add Mr. Plowman in there, chaos resumes, because half the time you've got them three clowns clattering into each other, and the poor bloke who's Smallwood pocket for them is on his own and kicks a snag. So you've got to have some accountability, some responsibility, and that is purely on David Teague. That is on David Teague first, it's on Sam Docherty second, and third, it's Patrick, how pretty's my hair Crips.
Before Jad, it's okay. Prediction time, fellas. Jad, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts to tonight in terms of margin and one thing you want to see in the last 10 weeks?
I just want to see. There's just something has to change. I want to see some more faith put in players that Teague hasn't put faith in before. And I just want to see who really fucking wants it, because when your club's under review like this, I reckon the characters step up and you find out who's who, to be honest. And for today, I'm not getting sucked in, boys. I'm not getting sucked in. I reckon it's just going to be Giants by 36.
Giants by 36. Tommy?
I think if the midfield works hard, the defence sticks together. I think we've got tools in the forward line. That'll hurt them. I think the rucks are depleted, so we should be good there. So putting all that together, Carlton will lose by 38.
And now it's Vince's final word with a special cameo from the bowling ball, Rocco.
Well,
what do we
just
think,
before
fellas?
I give you my final word, I want to give Rocco an opportunity. What do you reckon, Rock?
All right, my final word is it's going to be standard 28-point loss, right? We're going to be up. We're going to just get to about 2 goals. They'll kick the last 2 goals. We'll lose by about 28. I just want to see them run out this game, mate. I just want to see them put in an effort and run out this game, man. And hopefully they can do it for the rest of the year and we can show something. That's about it. So, but I'm hoping a win. This is the problem with Carlton. I don't really believe we can win. I just hope we can win. That's all.
Yeah.
Sadly
well,
true,
boys,
mate.
it's been an
Sadly
interesting
true.
morning. Just to take up a little bit of what Pommy was saying about the difference between Bolton and Teague. I think one of the things that was refreshing about Teague when he first took the job is that he corrected some of the wrongs. Bolton was starting to play players in all their wrong positions. He corrected that. He brought Eddie Curnow back into the middle. He brought Murphy back into the middle. He started playing players where they play their best football. And for some reason in the last 2 years, and probably especially in the last 12 months, he's gone right away from that. And I think he's paid the price for it. I think he should just go back to playing the players in their best positions and ask for the supreme effort. And if they can't play their best football in their best positions, well, then they deserve to be dropped. If they play Liam Stocker on Toby Green today, I will lose my shit. So that young kid's been played out of position just about for all of his 12 games or whatever he's played. Play him in the midfield, for goodness sake. Anyway, you want the last word? I'm a bit like Rocco. I hope we win. I don't think we'll win. Every game so far this year, we've lost between 16 and 28 points. I think the last 2 games we've lost by 22 points, which is exactly the halfway mark. I can't see it being any different, boys. GWS, grog, wine and spirits by 22 points.
Grog, wine and spirits. That's, funnily enough, there's a fair few of those stores out in the greater Western Sydney area.
Yeah, I reckon we'll be drinking a lot of grog, wine and spirits after another loss. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think I have to mirror you all. I hope we're wrong because I'd love to see us win. We'd all love to see us win, no matter what we say. It just makes us feel better. But I reckon GWS by 27. I think they just got a bit too much class for Carlton. I think with those sort of blokes they brought in, they took out an Ash and they brought in some physicality. So they're just going to try and bash us in tough conditions. But let's hope we're wrong. Let's hope we're here next week after a win and we can drink a little bit of the Carlton Kool-Aid because you know how delicious that is. It's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you, everyone, for watching this morning. Blue Broad Saturdays every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Go Blues, and thank you, gentlemen.
Before we go, 7 o'clock, me, Rocco, the sexy Mars, and some other guy that looks like American Dad will be live and exclusive to Blue Abroad with the Watch Along with Pom, my new show. They're my first guests. If you do want to be a guest and watch with me, please drop me a PM. We'll sort it out. I want to get through as many people as possible. I want to be like Leonardo DiCaprio at a sorority house. That's how many people I want to get through. So please drop a comment in.
Big 7 p.m. tonight. Big night tonight. One way or the other. Go Blues, lads.
See you guys.
Go Blues!